Hello there. Poland just pulled the rug right out from under the EU's bloc-wide asylum seeker relocation plans because Poland is refusing to take any asylum seekers. Now this one has quite a few surprises in it, so hang on for the ride. The Eurocrats might have breathed a sigh of relief when Donald Tusk unseated the Polish Law and Justice Party, but I bet they're not laughing now. Because Poland was giving the Brussels Eurocrats all sorts of problems, with the then ruling Law and Justice Party changing Polish law on matters like state TV and judges' appointments. Internal changes to Polish national law that the Eurocrats did not agree with, changes that therefore had to be reversed. And the Polish Law and Justice government was not playing ball. Law and Justice was also against the Brussels-led EU-wide asylum seeker plans. The anti-EU lobby therefore likes Poland for all of this. But the EU wanted Poland to toe the line on their rule of law requirements or face all manner of Brussels-led punishments, like the withholding of funds. So when the ardent pro-EU former EU Council President Donald Tusk managed to wrest the reins of power over Poland very recently from the Law and Justice Party and become the new Prime Minister, the Brussels overlords might have felt relieved. And the anti-EU lobby was concerned that Tusk would just go all in and go along with the EU asylum seeker plans. And Brussels might also have been quite happy, as Tusk set about using force to shut down what they regarded as the Law and Justice Party-controlled Polish state broadcaster radio and press agency. The Eurocrats had not been very pleased when the old regime used domestically legal means to bring about what they thought of as an anti-EU Polish state propaganda arm. But they haven't moaned about Donald Tusk using downright unconstitutional methods like force to bring about what they would probably view as the right sort of business as normal. But that might all be about to change. Because Donald Tusk has just put some almighty skids under the EU plans for redistributing those seeking asylum in the EU evenly around the bloc. Suddenly he's on the same side as the anti-EU lobby on this issue. But is it a surprise? More on that in a moment. Now the EU wants to force every EU member state to take a set number of asylum seekers every single year, or pay a huge amount into the central EU coffers for refusing to do so, with the money raised being used to help the member states that do take the asylum seekers. And the last time I looked, it was going to be 30,000 asylum seekers per year for each country in the EU, or pay €20,000 for each and every asylum seeker they don't take. Meaning that if a member state took 0 asylum seekers, it would cost that country €600 million a year, over £500 million, in so-called solidarity payments. And those solidarity payments would then be allocated to those states taking asylum seekers in so that they can be housed and looked after. But Tusk has now said that Poland will not be participating, which I think will have come as a bit of a shock to Brussels. Although Tusk has said in the past that he didn't like such schemes. In fact, he did say that the only reason a similar scheme didn't fly back in 2017 was because he was the EU Council President and stopped it. And in the run-up to the recent Polish elections, Tusk was very critical of the way the Law and Justice Party was dealing, or not dealing, with illegal immigration, including accusing them of running a shady cash-for-visa system to raise funds by letting foreigners into Poland and the EU. Do you know who in Europe brings in the most Muslim immigrants? The government that frightens with them, the Law and Justice government, Tusk said on social media in the run-up to October's elections. Now, from a UK perspective, as long as the UK steers clear of any EU asylum relocation scheme, it might have worked out well for us. Because that new EU scheme included all sorts of mechanisms to prevent asylum seekers fronting up in any EU country that took their fancy, like France, for example, including forcing asylum seekers to seek refuge in their first country of entry into the EU, which is a complete change from the Dublin Accord. So it could have taken the pressure off of the French authorities and eased the Channel boat problem. The only issue with that, though, is that as far as I can see, Keir Starmer and his Labour Party were itching to get included in that scheme and take as many of those as we were asked to take. He would just get rid of the rubber dinghies by replacing them with more P&O ferries, and then claim, job done. So the good news could be that if there's no new scheme, then Starmer cannot sign us up to it. Although I wouldn't put it past him to sort out something similar with Brussels on his own. In the vain hope of making friends and influencing people, you know, the woke, wet, lefty way of doing business and being rolled over every time. Anyway, Donald Tusk has, for the moment, torn a big hole in that whole Brussels plan because he said in a speech, "We will not accept a single migrant. Poland will never be part of such a mechanism." And this was exactly the previous Law and Justice government policy on that programme. It also puts Tusk's Poland in the same camp as the Czech Republic, Slovakia and Hungary, who have in the past refused to participate in such schemes. So one assumes that Brussels will now be casting about on how to bypass Tusk or even get him out of the picture. Maybe they'll now suddenly take an avid interest in which rules of law requirements he broke when ditching Poland's state media. Now, another point to note is that according to a Politico report back in July, Tusk had been toying with the use of anti-immigrant rhetoric, specifically anti-immigrant rhetoric where one specific demographic is concerned, to overmatch that of the Law and Justice Party. In a series of social media videos earlier this month that have gone viral in Poland, Tusk warned that the Law and Justice Party is trying to distract public attention by denouncing the EU migration plan, which wouldn't actually see any people arriving in Poland, while opening the door to mass migration from Muslim countries. And it continued by saying that Tusk was accusing Law and Justice of preparing a document that will allow even more people to come from countries like Saudi Arabia, India, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Nigeria, and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. All going on to say that Tusk went on to accuse the government of bringing in 130,000 people from those countries last year, 50 times more than when Tusk's party was in power in 2015. So many might have interpreted this as Tusk being on the side of more immigration via the EU plans, but pointing out that Law and Justice were claiming one thing but doing another. All a bit confusing, and more Machiavellian than Brexit. Or was Tusk being phobic? Well, it does look, with this latest news, that the latter is true. And it may come as a bit of a surprise to some, but judging by his history, it does appear Tusk may be more centre-right than people think. And maybe Tusk now recognises the importance of the national view over the EU view, something government leaders are meant to take heed of. Is he part of the big EU pivot towards nationalism? Is he following the likes of Italy, Sweden and France? Either way, with all the twists and turns in this, Can we trust him?